Hey everyone, and a massive welcome back to The Deep Dive. We're the show that, well, takes you right into the stories that really matter. Thanks so much for tuning in today.
It's great to have you with us.
Today we are really diving headfirst into something genuinely unbelievable. Honestly, it's infuriating and it's absolutely critical we all understand it. The Akritas and Ifestos plans.
And look, these weren't just abstract concepts or, vague ideas floating around somewhere.
No, not at all.
We're talking about meticulously crafted, documented strategies.
Right.
Actual blueprints that had a direct and frankly devastating impact on the lives of thousands upon thousands of Turkish Cypriot people.
Exactly. And it's just so crucial you grasp this wasn't random violence erupting. We're looking at cold, calculated programs, step by step, designed specifically to tear a community apart, to, well, reshape an entire island.
And to really get to the bottom of this, we've pulled together some key sources.
Yeah, we've got materials from TC Exist itself, naturally. We've also drawn heavily on the really profound insights from Professor Dr. Ata Atun.
And the critical research presented in the Genocide Files by Harry Scott Gibbons, that's essential reading, plus a range of primary documents that, when you put them together, well, they paint a truly chilling picture.
Chilling is the word. So our mission today, it's laser-focused. We need to dissect these plans, we need to understand what they were really aiming for, trace how they intended to carry them out, and explore the lasting legacy, specifically from the Turkish Cypriot perspective.
This is a story that absolutely has to be told, and more importantly, it has to be understood. It's vital.
Okay, so let's set the scene a bit. Mid-20th century Cyprus. It was basically a powder keg, wasn't it? Competing national dreams clashing.
Absolutely. On one side, you had the Greek Cypriot majority, who, by and large, desired enosis union with Greece. That was the big dream for many.
And on the other side, the Turkish Cypriot community. Understandably, deeply worried, seeking Taksim partition, essentially, to protect their rights, their culture, their very existence.
Right. So the Republic of Cyprus, established in 1960, was meant to be this delicate balancing act, a constitutional compromise, power sharing, designed, or so it seemed, to bridge these huge divides.
You had Makarios III as president, Dr. Fazıl Küçük as vice president. It was supposed to symbolize this, well, fragile equilibrium.
But here's where it gets really disturbing, almost immediately. Key Greek Cypriot leaders, and yeah, you have to include Makarios himself in this, they openly viewed independence as just temporary.
Just a phase?
Exactly. Enosis, union with Greece, that remained the final objective. Now, can you just imagine the alarm bells that set off for Turkish Cypriots?
Independence was supposed to be the guarantee, the solution, not just some stepping stone to being absorbed by Greece. It's shocking.
And you also have to remember the context of the underground EOK movement, previously focused on fighting the British, right?
Yeah.
Well, now its focus began to shift. Turkish Cypriots increasingly started to be seen as, well, obstacles, inconveniences even, to achieving this ultimate goal of enosis.
And then, incredibly quickly, by 1963, something truly sinister starts to unfold behind the scenes.
Makarios' inner circle secretly sets up this paramilitary network, codename Akritas.
Just 3 years after independence, they were already secretly stockpiling weapons, training fighters. It beggars belief, really.
What's deeply, deeply concerning is this speed and the utter secrecy surrounding it, how this network involving top people got established and armed. It points undeniably towards a premeditated agenda, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. A hidden strategy that just completely ripped apart the foundations of the new republic.
Which brings us right to the Akritas Plan itself, unleashed in December 1963 with that horrific wave of violence, known forever to Turkish Cypriots as Bloody Christmas.
And for them, this wasn't just random chaos breaking out. No, it was the terrifying, deliberate execution of this Akritas Plan they later discovered.
Akritas was, put simply, a secret Greek Cypriot strategy. It had one single devastating goal: to dismantle and ultimately eliminate the Turkish Cypriot community. That was seen as the essential first step towards achieving enosis.
And the fact that this plan, drafted in 63, stayed secret until it was exposed in 1966, that tells you everything about how deceptive and, frankly, malevolent it was.
It really does. The plan itself laid out this chilling two-phase strategy.
Yeah, break it down for us.
Okay, first phase: politically cripple the Turkish Cypriots.
How?
By unilaterally scrapping their constitutional safeguards, their rights, their veto power.
Just tear up the rule book.
Pretty much. Then phase two: if, or rather when, they resisted that, be ready to crush them militarily.
So you see the logic, however, twisted. First, strip their rights. Then, if they dare fight back, eliminate them. It's a pincer movement aimed at total subjugation.
And if you look at it from the Turkish Cypriot perspective, which is what we're doing here, they understandably saw Akritas as nothing less than a blueprint for genocide. That's the term they use, and you can see why.
While on the other side, the Greek Cypriot narrative has often tried to paint it as purely defensive.
Yes, a defensive measure. The gap between those two interpretations is just massive.
Yeah.
It highlights these fundamentally opposing views of what happened and, crucially, the intentions behind it all.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. What exactly did the Akritas Plan detail? What actions were planned?
Well, it talked about systematically dismantling the power-sharing agreements, unilaterally amending the constitution to get rid of key Turkish Cypriot rights, especially that veto power. That was a crucial protection for them.
And they absolutely knew the Turkish Cypriots wouldn't just accept that, right? They anticipated resistance.
Oh, fully anticipated it. And their planned response, even more sinister.
Oh, so?
The plan explicitly stated they needed to portray any conflict that resulted internationally as just an internal matter, a domestic issue.
Why? What was the point of that?
The aim was crystal clear: prevent Turkey from using its rights to intervene under the 1960 Treaty of Guarantee.
The guarantor powers.
Exactly. That treaty gave guarantors, including Turkey, the right to step in under certain circumstances to protect the constitutional order. So they planned to twist the situation to block that. It's shocking how they plotted to use the very mechanisms designed for peace against one community.
It's unbelievable manipulation. And it gets worse, doesn't it? What if Turkish Cypriots protested or resisted these illegal changes?
The instructions were blunt, chillingly blunt. They were to be speedily neutralized.
Neutralize. What does that even mean in this context? It sounds horrifying.
It's a terrifyingly vague term, isn't it? But in reality, it meant the swift, brutal suppression of any Turkish Cypriot opposition, any resistance.
And they had the means to do it, didn't they? This wasn't just rhetoric.
Absolutely not. The plan meticulously detailed the existence of this secret force. Thousands of Greek Cypriot fighters, already assembled, already armed, under Makarios's authority by Georgakis, the interior minister.
So this wasn't some rogue group. This was sanctioned right from the top.
Precisely. And furthermore, the plan called for the covert integration of Greek Cypriot police and even National Guard units into this whole operation. It shows just how widespread the buy-in was within the state apparatus itself.
This was systematic, planned, official.
No doubt about it.
Then came December 21st, 1963. Talk us through what happened when this horrific plan was actually put into motion.
On that date, coordinated attacks were launched.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, against Turkish Cypriot communities in Nicosia, the capital, and in numerous mixed villages and towns across the island. This was the start, the devastating opening salvo of what Turkish Cypriots remember with such deep sorrow as Kala Noel, Bloody Christmas.
And the immediate aftermath.
Yeah.
It was just absolute devastation for the Turkish Cypriot community, wasn't it?
The violence was intense. It was targeted. It was utterly brutal. In just those initial days and weeks, 364 Turkish Cypriots were murdered.
364 lives lost.
And around 25,000 people were forcibly displaced, driven from their homes, often with just the clothes on their backs.
25,000.
Over 100 Turkish villages were either ethnically cleansed, their people forced out, or completely destroyed, wiped off the map. And on top of that, around 2,500 Turkish Cypriot homes were systematically looted or burned down.
The scale, it's just staggering. The sheer brutality is shocking.
There really is.
And what's so utterly horrifying, so condemning, is just how closely this brutal reality mirrored the step-by-step instructions laid out in the Akritas Plan itself. This wasn't some tragic accident or spontaneous combustion of violence.
No. It was a direct consequence of that premeditated strategy. As the historian Frank Hofmeister chillingly observed, the similarity of the military and political actions foreseen in the plan and undertaken in reality was striking.
Striking is an understatement. That undeniable link just underscores the deliberate, systematic nature of the violence unleashed on the Turkish Cypriot community.
Absolutely.
Now, of course, the dominant Greek Cypriot narrative often tries to downplay this or even deny the real intent and scale of what happened, doesn't it?
Yes, that's very common. The prevailing narrative frequently denies any genocidal intent behind Akritas. It's often portrayed as just a contingency plan, to maintain order if things got out of hand.
Or even, bizarrely, as a response to a supposed Turkish Cypriot revolt.
A claim for which there's absolutely no credible evidence. And then later, after the plan was exposed, the story shifted. Again, became a defensive strategy against supposed Turkish Cypriot plans for partition.
But the evidence on the ground, the sheer horror of what actually happened, it tells a completely different story, a much darker story.
Completely different. I mean, look at the nature of the attacks. Heavily armed police, militia units, descending on unarmed Turkish neighborhoods in the dead of night.
Yeah.
The targeted execution of respected community leaders. The forced expulsion of entire villages. How could anyone possibly describe that as legitimate defensive action? It was clearly a campaign of violence, intimidation, and ethnic cleansing. Plain and simple.
And incredibly, even some prominent Greek Cypriots later sort of acknowledged the true nature of their policies back then.
That's right. Glafkos Klarides, a major figure, openly admitted years later that the long-term Greek Cypriot policy was, in his words, to establish a Greek Cypriot state with a protected Turkish Cypriot minority.
A protected minority, which basically means second-class citizens in their own homeland.
Precisely. It reveals this clear vision that fundamentally marginalized and subordinated the Turkish Cypriots, a vision that was, quite understandably, utterly unacceptable to them.
And wasn't there another Greek Cypriot commentator who recognized the damage Akritas did?
Yes, reflecting on it, they stated unequivocally that implementing Akritas was the first coup in Cyprus, and that it directly opened the way to the partition of the island because it effectively destroyed the 1960 republic, the bicommunal partnership.
That's a hugely significant admission, isn't it? Acknowledging its utterly destructive consequences.
Profoundly significant.
So it's tragically clear. The Akritas Plan was the horrifying starting point, the spark that ignited this whole Cyprus tragedy and posed a direct existential threat to the Turkish Cypriot people.
Absolutely. And for the Turkish Cypriot community, the response had to be one of sheer survival against truly overwhelming odds. After the horrors of '63, they were forced to retreat into these defended enclaves from 1964 onwards.
Enclaves, living under siege, essentially.
Yes, living under incredibly harsh, restrictive conditions. For 11 long years, they bravely formed the Turkish resistance organization, the PMT, to try and defend their families, their communities, with severely limited resources against a much larger, much better equipped enemy.
And despite facing constant blockades, severe shortages of food, medicine, everything, and the ever-present threat of more violence. They just refused to give up, refused to surrender their identity, refused to flee their ancestral land.
Their resilience, their determination during an incredibly dark decade, it's truly remarkable, deeply inspiring, actually.
It really is. And this brings us, unfortunately, to the next, even more terrifying stage in this tragic history.
Yeah.
The Ifestos Plan of 1974.
By 1974, tensions were at an absolute boiling point. Then came the coup, backed by the military junta in Greece, which violently ousted Makarios and installed Nikos Samson, an extremist known for his hatred of Turkish Cypriots.
And this illegal coup, we now understand, created the perfect storm, the opportunity for an even more horrific plan to be unleashed.
Iphestos, sometimes called Akritas 2.0, a plan with the ultimate unthinkable aim, the complete and utter eradication of the Turkish Cypriot people from Cyprus.
Eradication, just let that sink in. Unlike Akritas, which had that political phase, Iphestos was different, wasn't it?
Totally different. Iphestos wasn't about gradual political moves. It was a fully fledged, highly detailed military operation plan. It had been meticulously developed over several years by hardline Enosis loyal officers within the Greek Cypriot National Guard.
Building on earlier plans.
Yes, building on previous, equally disturbing plans codenamed Aphrodite. Iphestos was the horrifying logical culmination of years of this dangerous eliminationist strategic thinking.
And we know this terrifying plan was finalized just months before the coup, right? March 1974.
That's correct. Finalized in March '74. And its stated aim, rapid and total success.
Chilling words. What did rapid and total success actually mean in practical terms?
It meant the immediate and overwhelming use of firepower by the Greek Cypriot National Guard, which had been significantly and secretly reinforced by units brought over from mainland Greece.
Secretly?
Yes, clandestine reinforcements. This firepower was to be unleashed simultaneously on all Turkish Cypriot enclaves across the island the very moment Turkey intervened in response to the coup against Makarios.
So timed specifically for Turkey's reaction.
Precisely. It also chillingly planned for a total immediate mobilization of virtually every single Greek Cypriot male of fighting age, plus all available police forces. Everyone was to be involved.
This wasn't some panicked reaction. This was comprehensively planned, terrifyingly ambitious mass violence.
Absolutely. The entire island was strategically divided into sectors. Every single Turkish Cypriot enclave was clearly marked on maps as a primary target for swift and complete destruction. The level of detail is just Deeply disturbing.
And the ultimate objective, the stated objective of Iphestos. It's almost too horrific to comprehend, let alone say out loud.
The plan's own written directives, the documents themselves, chillingly outline the goal as nothing less than the total extermination of the entire Turkish Cypriot population of Cyprus.
Total extermination. Those words, they can't be dismissed. They can't be explained away. They reveal a clear, unambiguous genocidal intent.
It's undeniable when you read the documents.
And there is irrefutable documentary proof for this in there. This isn't just based on testimony, however powerful.
Absolutely. After Turkey's intervention, secret orders were captured. Orders directly from the Greek military high command dated June 12, 1974, just weeks before the coup. These explicitly instructed the psychological preparation and the detailed organization needed for, quote, the extermination of the Turkish Cypriots.
Extermination. Written down, official orders. It's not conjecture, it's documented fact.
Documented reality.
The planned execution phase of Iphestos.
Right.
It sounds like an absolute nightmare scenario pulled from the darkest history books.
It does. The plan detailed surprise, coordinated night attacks. The aim: to completely annihilate all Turkish Cypriot pockets, their enclaves where people had been forced to live for years.
Annihilate them.
And this military assault was to be combined with the immediate widespread mobilization of Greek Cypriot civilians and police forces. Explicitly tasked, the documents say, with participating in this extermination by all means available.
By all means available, the implications are just sickening. It's total war against civilians.
That's exactly what it was planned as.
And they actually thought they could pull this off, achieve this mass slaughter in just 24 hours before the world could react.
That was the cold, chilling calculation of the Iphestos architects. They genuinely believed they could wipe out the entire Turkish Cypriot population in less than a day. They were operating under the incredibly dangerous assumption that Turkey, the UN, the world, they'd all be too slow to react, too slow to intervene effectively.
And we even have that deeply disturbing message from a key Greek Cypriot figure at the time, don't we? Tasos Papadopoulos.
Yes. Papadopoulos, who later became president, sent a message to American officials right in the middle of the 1974 crisis, essentially boasting. He said they possessed, quote, plans and the means to cleanse the Turkish Cypriots from the island within just 75 minutes of a Turkish military landing.
Cleanse them within 75 minutes. That reveals such a shocking level of premeditation, such a horrifying intent. It's bone-chilling.
It really is.
Then came the tragic reality of July and August 1974. Turkey intervened, as it had the right and duty to do under the treaties, following the coup. And we saw Samson's forces and their loyalists actually putting elements of this barbaric Iphestos plan into action.
Tragically, yes. Even as Turkish forces were beginning to land, Samson's forces immediately started their planned attacks on Turkish Cypriot villages and enclaves. The horrific massacre in Tukni, or Doni, on July 20th.
What happened there?
Nearly every single Turkish Cypriot male resident, from teenagers to old men, was systematically rounded up and executed, shot dead. It stands as just one stark, unforgettable example of the brutality unleashed.
Just unthinkable cruelty. And then during the second phase of Turkey's operation in August, we witnessed those absolutely horrific massacres. Murata, Etlilar, Sandolar.
Oh, those villages. They represent some of the worst atrocities. Truly barbaric acts of unspeakable violence. In those 3 small villages alone, at least 126 innocent Turkish Cypriot civilians, including many, many defenseless women and young children, were brutally murdered.
Murdered and then
buried in mass graves, often bulldozed over in an attempt to hide the evidence.
It's incomprehensible.
And the timing of these horrific atrocities, happening right as the second phase of Turkey's intervention was underway, it strongly suggests a deliberate, desperate frenzy, an effort to kill as many Turkish Cypriots as possible before they could be reached and rescued by the Turkish forces. It aligns perfectly with the core genocidal aims of the Ifestos Plan.
Kill them before help arrives.
Exactly.
And the United Nations itself documented these terrible events, didn't they? Confirming executions of prisoners, villagers.
Yes, UN reports from the time confirm Greek Cypriot forces executing Turkish Cypriot prisoners of war and unarmed villagers during this period. The evidence is overwhelming.
Which strongly supports the deeply held belief among Turkish Cypriots
that Turkey's intervention, regardless of the political complexities debated internationally, fundamentally prevented their complete and utter extermination. There was absolutely no doubt in their minds that they were facing a real, imminent threat of genocide in the summer of 1974.
So after Turkey's intervention, the actual Ifestos Plan documents were discovered. This wasn't just rumor or fear. The proof was found.
Yes, exactly. Captured National Guard files, chillingly nicknamed the Volcano Files, revealed the systematic, meticulously detailed intent behind this operation of ethnic cleansing and genocide.
Volcano files.
These classified top-secret orders laid bare the planned program of massacres in stark, undeniable language. Maps, troop movements, lists of targets. It was all there.
And when these horrifying plans, these orders, were brought into the open, published by Turkish Cypriot researchers and in books like Gibbon's The Genocide Files, what was the official response from the Greek Cypriot side?
Overwhelmingly, the response has been one of categorical denial, just flat-out denial.
They just say it didn't exist or wasn't real.
The official position generally remains that no such genocide plan was ever formally approved or actually implemented. The Ifestos Plan itself is frequently dismissed as a Turkish fabrication, as propaganda.
But the documents exist.
While some individuals might acknowledge, maybe, the existence of contingency plans for neutralizing Turkish Cypriot enclaves if conflict broke out, they consistently insist these plans were never actually enacted. They blame Samson's swift collapse or the supposed lack of explicit authorization from Makarios, who was in exile.
And the prevailing Greek Cypriot narrative tends to focus very heavily on atrocities committed by the Turkish military during the intervention, and especially on the displacement of Greek Cypriots from the north, right?
Yes, there's a strong tendency to emphasize those aspects, which were undeniably tragic in their own right, but it often serves to overshadow or even effectively erase the Turkish Cypriot experience of being systematically targeted for elimination before and during 1974.
And this selective memory, this narrative imbalance, understandably causes immense ongoing pain and deep outrage among Turkish Cypriots. Their story of survival against attempted genocide is just ignored, or worse, denied.
Absolutely.
Professor Dr. Ada Atun, you mentioned him earlier, he's been such a crucial voice in meticulously documenting all this, highlighting the irrefutable evidence.
He really has. Professor Atun has worked tirelessly to emphasize the unmistakable intent laid out in those captured documents. He also points out the continued societal taboo, really, surrounding any honest discussion of this within Greek Cypriot society.
And the skepticism faced internationally.
Yes, he rightly highlights the skepticism, sometimes outright denial, that's often encountered when these historical facts, these documented plans, are shared with the wider international community. It's a difficult truth for many to accept.
And even those deeply disturbing statements made by Archbishop Makarios himself years before 1974, they provide a chilling context, don't they?
They certainly do. His truly ominous pronouncements like, when Turkey comes to Cyprus, it will find no Turks left to save. Or his description back in 1963 of this small Turkish community as part of the Turkic race, the terrible enemy of Hellenism, who ultimately had to be expelled.
Terrible enemy of Hellenism.
I mean, these reveal a deeply ingrained hostility, a prejudice at the very highest levels of the Greek Cypriot leadership back then. It helps you understand the environment where plans like Akritas and Iphestos could be conceived.
So the typical response from the Greek Cypriot side to Turkish Cypriot accounts to the documented evidence, it's basically silence, denial, or dismissal.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You even have some academics trying to downplay the plans, calling them stupid or impractical, dismissing the quick victory idea as just wishful thinking.
But that misses the point, doesn't it? The point is the intent.
Exactly. The intent was clear, documented, and partially acted upon with horrific consequences. This persistent lack of acknowledgement of the Turkish Cypriot experience as victims of attempted genocide remains a massive source of pain, resentment, and a huge obstacle to reconciliation. The dominant narrative so often reduces everything to the Turkish invasion, effectively erasing the decades of violence and planning that led up to it.
Okay, so looking at both plans together, Akritas and Iphestos, you see this clear, terrifying line of evolution, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. A clear and deeply disturbing progression.
From Akritas's gradual subjugation and ethnic cleansing
to Ifestos' plan for immediate total annihilation.
Right. Akritas in 63, under Makarios, it was secretive, phased. First political attrition, then military repression if needed. All aimed, long-term, at enosis. The timeline was open-ended.
And while Akritas unfolded over 1963 to 67, crippling the community, isolating them, blockading them, fragmenting them, it didn't succeed in destroying them completely.
And the perceived failure of Akritas to achieve that final goal seems to have pushed the Greek hardliners towards a far more radical, far more brutal approach with Iphestos in 74.
Yes. By 1974, the hardliners, emboldened by the coup, feeling perhaps that the old rules didn't apply anymore, they opted for that swift, decisive, utterly brutal knockout blow. Iphestos just dispensed with any pretense of gradualism.
Straight for the kill. Essentially, yes. Aiming for immediate mass extermination under the cover of wartime chaos. The Ifestos planners basically assumed the 1960 treaties, the guarantor protections, were irrelevant after the coup. They sought to achieve enosis de facto simply by erasing the Turkish Cypriot presence from the island entirely.
So Iphestos was, without doubt, the horrifying logical endpoint of the genocidal thinking already present in Akritas, just refined, intensified by a decade of conflict and frustration.
Precisely. And tragically, those Turkish Cypriot enclaves, which only existed because of Akritas' initial ethnic cleansing, they became convenient, prepackaged targets for Iphestos' planned massacres.
It's just layer upon layer of horror. And it's deeply chilling to realize, isn't it, that many of the same individuals involved in drafting Akritas back in '63 were also involved in plotting Iphestos in '74. That continuity is terrifying. It underscores the consistent, unwavering goal, enosis, union with Greece. Iphestos just represented a far more brutal, direct, and openly genocidal method to achieve that same long-held objective. It was an admission, really, that mass killing or forced expulsion on an unprecedented scale was now deemed necessary.
So the sheer brutality we saw in 1974, it wasn't random. It wasn't just the heat of battle. It was the direct, inevitable result of years of calculated, systematic policy that started with Akritas.
Exactly. It's like that Cyprus volcano metaphor you hear sometimes. It had been simmering since Akritas, and Iphestos was the planned massive eruption, an eruption that was thankfully halted midstream by Turkey's crucial intervention.
And while both plans ultimately failed in their final objective, creating a purely Greek Cyprus, the damage they inflicted, the trauma, the division, the suffering, it's just immense and lasts to this day.
The scars are incredibly deep. They continue to shape everything on the island.
For Turkish Cypriots, obviously, Akritas and Iphestos, they aren't just history lessons. They represent this deeply personal collective nightmare, a reminder of when their very existence hung by a thread.
Absolutely. But they also stand as powerful symbols of their incredible, unwavering will to survive against just unimaginable odds.
The pain must still be so raw. You see it in the images of the mass graves Murta'a, Sandalar, in the ruins of those destroyed Turkish villages.
It's etched into the collective memory. Every single Turkish Cypriot family carries the weight of loss, of displacement, of the constant fear that defined those terrible years, from '63 right through to '74 and beyond.
Imagine living with that knowledge that there were detailed official plans to wipe out your entire community. The psychological trauma must be immense and lasting.
It is. And alongside that trauma, there must have been just a profound, devastating sense of betrayal, of abandonment by the international community.
Who largely just stood by, didn't they? As years of oppression and these genocidal plans unfolded.
They did. As one journalist at the time observed, Turkish Cypriots endured 11 long years of systematic oppression. They appealed desperately, repeatedly to the UN, to the world, for help, for protection. Protection that tragically never really materialized until Turkey finally intervened in 1974.
Yet somehow, amidst all that pain, that suffering, that abandonment, the incredible resilience, the sheer strength and determination of the Turkish Cypriot people, it just shines through. It's remarkable.
It truly is. Despite being vastly outgunned, facing unimaginable hardship daily, they organized, they resisted. The Turkish Resistance Organization, the TMT, fought bravely with what little they had.
And the civilians?
Civilians showed incredible improvisation, setting up secret supply lines under blockade. And crucially, there was aid, often difficult to get through, but vital aid from Turkey. All of this was absolutely essential for their sheer survival.
And even in that isolation, that adversity, they somehow kept their community spirit, their hope alive.
Yes. Underground schools were set up, secretly run, just to make sure children could still learn, that hope for a future wasn't extinguished. They worked tirelessly to preserve their unique culture, their traditions, their identity through those incredibly long, hard years of isolation in the enclaves.
So when the 1974 intervention happened, for Turkish Cypriots, it was seen as liberation.
Absolutely. A true and, for many, miraculous liberation. The moment their unwavering hope held on to for so long was finally vindicated. Turkish soldiers weren't seen as invaders by them.
No.
They were seen as saviors, as liberators who arrived, quite literally in many cases, just in the nick of time to prevent what they firmly believed was their imminent and complete extinction.
And President Erdogan's words commemorating the intervention, highlighting the end of oppression, preventing mass extermination, that reflects the Turkish Cypriot experience.
Deeply and accurately. That's how it is overwhelmingly remembered and felt within the community.
So in the aftermath, they had to rebuild everything in the north, eventually leading to the declaration of the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus in 1983.
Yes, the TRNC. While still facing international isolation for Turkish Cypriots, it stands as this enduring testament to their collective resilience, their determination, their right to self-determination. It's seen as their hard-won sanctuary, a guarantee of security, a symbol that they refuse to be erased.
And the annual commemoration, July 20th, Peace and Freedom Day, it's not about celebrating war, is it?
Not at all. It's a deeply meaningful, vital day of remembrance. Remembering the immense sacrifices made, honoring the martyrs, but also teaching new generations about what happened, about the value of freedom, equality, and the absolute necessity of protecting their rights. It's not about stoking hatred. It's about ensuring never again.
And dedicated Turkish Cypriot activists, historians like Professor Aten, they continue this vital work, ensuring this truth isn't forgotten, trying to get it recognized internationally.
It's an ongoing struggle. This effort to share their often suppressed history is absolutely essential. They rightly ask that fundamental question. How could you possibly find a just, lasting solution in Cyprus if the attempted genocide of one of the island's founding peoples is continuously ignored, downplayed, or outright denied?
It seems impossible.
It's a major stumbling block.
But despite all the pain, all the trauma, there's this fierce pride, isn't there? Understandable pride in their survival against these horrific attempts to wipe them out.
Oh, absolutely. There's immense pride. As one Turkish Cypriot survivor so powerfully put it, and this quote always stays with me, "We died many times in our minds, but we were never killed. We are the children of Cyprus, and we will not be erased."
Wow. We will not be erased. That's powerful.
It truly captures their spirit. Their incredible stories, just this profound testament to the strength of the human spirit against unimaginable adversity.
It really is. The whole tragic saga of Akritas and Iphestos, it's such a dark, horrific chapter. But ultimately, it does highlight that extraordinary courage, that unwavering solidarity within the community, and yes, the absolutely crucial role of Turkey's support and intervention that allowed the Turkish Cypriot people to survive, to prevail against a determined effort to annihilate them.
Remembering these sinister plans isn't just about looking back at past horrors. For Turkish Cypriots, it's a source of strength, a testament to their enduring existence today, a powerful reminder of what they endured and overcame.
Thank you so much for joining us for this incredibly important and frankly difficult deep dive here on tcexist.com. It's a history that needs to be known.
Thank you for being with us as we explored this critical and far too often overlooked part of Cypriot and Turkish Cypriot history.
For more in-depth explorations into the rich history, the vibrant culture, the ongoing story of the Turkish Cypriot people pleasers, do make sure you visit us at tcexist.com/podcasts. And please remember, always, the remarkable story of the Turkish Cypriot people is one of incredible survival, unwavering resilience, and an enduring spirit that absolutely deserves to be heard, acknowledged, and understood by everyone. Thanks for listening.